Chapter 700. Yi Fan rarely got angry in front of his daughter. Even if he was angry, he would scold her a few times. In the end, he would weigh the pros and cons and explain them one by one. However, he had never been like tonight. When he opened his mouth, he was so cold and indifferent that it made people feel cold in their hearts. He was really angry, and he was very angry. Not to mention Yiying, even Sun Dongxing was so scared that her heart was pounding. She looked at her husband, then looked at her daughter, and said in confusion, "Why do you want to transfer schools? Didn't the soldier say that Yiying was weak and that something big would happen if she stayed? That's why he asked us to take her back? What does this have to do with transferring schools? Even if the teacher said that Yiying was gossiping in class, so what? Children are not sensible. As teachers, how can we argue with children?" Sun Dongxing only saw her daughter lying alone on the bed in the infirmary just now. She rushed over and called her sweetheart nonstop. Her voice was loud, and she only looked at Yiying. She did not pay attention to what Teacher Xiao and the political commissar of the anti-chemical regiment were talking about. Later, Yi Jifan felt embarrassed, so he went outside the infirmary to quiet his ears and listened to the political commissar of the anti-chemical regiment explain the ins and outs of the matter. "Mr. Yi, we don't dare to accept Yiying in our army anymore. Yesterday, we instigated the whole class to target another girl. If it wasn't for that girl having some real ability, yesterday's matter wouldn't have ended. I thought that yesterday's matter would teach Yiying a lesson, but in the end, we were too naive. Today's military training was because the instructor of Class 1 admired a student in the class. In the end, Yiying really knows how to make groundless accusations and slander a soldier. I saw that Mr. Yi came in a government car. I think you must be an official with a position. Mr. Yi, please tell me, how should the army and the school deal with slandering a soldier with military merits? The strong write history and the weak talk. Fortunately, my soldiers and the girl who was wronged are all mentally strong and have some real ability. Otherwise, they would have been blamed by Yiying. The army is a place where military discipline is emphasized. Ding is ding, Mao is Mao, and ding is ding. Those who like to gossip have always been severely punished. Since Yiying is not a soldier in my team, I would like to ask Mr. Yi to bring Yiying back home first before teaching her how to behave properly. My soldiers are all men of indomitable spirit. I won't allow anyone to slander them." These words made Yi Jifan almost unable to hold himself back. He wanted to rush in and slap his daughter, who still had the guts to lie in bed and pretend to be sick. He only felt that all the face he had accumulated over the years as an official had been trampled under someone's feet. And the person who had trampled on his face was none other than his own daughter, whom he had high hopes for. He apologized and made amends. He pretended to be humble and wanted to erase this matter. Who knew that the political commissar in the army would not give him face at all? He said directly, "Mr. Yi, you care about your reputation. It's the same in the army. Whoever dares to bully a soldier in their own team is equivalent to slapping the team's face. Yiying is only a student, yet she dared to slander him. The army doesn't find trouble with students. They only find the parents behind the students to judge the matter as it is." This was several times more embarrassing than someone else trampling on his face. Chapter 701. Yi Jifan had pretended to be a coward, but no one saw it. When he recalled the scene at that time, his face still burned with pain. Sun Dongxing, who was left in the infirmary, didn't know what was going on. Looking at her ignorant face and her self-righteous stupidity, Yi Jifan couldn't hide the disgust in his heart. He looked coldly at the face in the back seat, which was already covered in fat, and his eyes flashed with deep disgust. This kind of idiot had some intelligence when she was young, but now that she was older, her intelligence was gone, and only stupidity was left. With the chauffeur around, Yi Jifan didn't want to say much. After a glance, he looked away and slowly leaned back in the car seat and closed his eyes. He didn't even have the mood to preach anymore. He originally thought that his daughter was teachable, but who knew that in the end, she was just a pile of mud that couldn't be helped. Compared to Yi Qian, she was far too inferior, far too inferior. Sun Xueqing, Sun Dongxing. They were two sisters, but why was one so smart and the other so stupid? I knew that when that bitch Yiqian came back, nothing good would come out of it. Our Yi Ying's life in the first year of high school was so smooth. Every teacher and student said that our Ying was a good student. She always made Ying angry when she came back. This won't do. The day after tomorrow, I'll personally go to school and make her suffer. Sun Dongxing didn't look at her husband's cold and dark face. She hugged her only daughter and said angrily, "If Ying doesn't have a good time in school, that wretched girl won't have a good time in school either." This time, Ying didn't dare to say anything. She carefully looked at Yi Zhifan, who was sitting in the front passenger seat with his eyes closed. She gently tugged at Sun Dongxing's sleeve. "Mom, don't say anything. Let's talk about it when we get home." Her father was a person who cared about his reputation. There was a chauffeur in the car. Dirty linen should not be aired in public. He was a government official after all. He couldn't let the chauffeur know about his dirty linen. Yi Ying, who was so scared that her back was covered in cold sweat, did not dare to add fuel to the fire. She only hoped that when she reached home, she could see that her father's anger had subsided and that he could talk to her nicely. If it was in the past, Yi Zhifan's anger would have subsided by the time they reached home. However, it was different this time. He asked the chauffeur to send the mother and daughter home. Instead of going upstairs, he asked the chauffeur to drive him away. Yi Ying was dumbfounded. Without thinking, she turned around and rushed to the car door. Dad, where are you going? I still have something to tell you." "Where are you going? It's so late. Can't you go out to do it tomorrow?" "The day after tomorrow, you and your mother will go to the school to settle the transfer. You won't be able to enter the provincial first high school, and I won't have the face to enter either. You can go with your mother to make a fool of yourself." Yi Zhifan was disappointed, very disappointed. He had clearly paved the way for her, allowing her to have whatever she wanted. In the end, a broad road had been turned into a dead end by her. He was so disappointed that he did not have the patience to guide her anymore. He was so disappointed that he did not want to say anything. Yi Ying's pupils contracted. How could she not understand? Her entire body trembled like a leaf in the cold wind. She trembled until her face was completely drained of blood. She had never thought that what awaited her was not a scolding or beating, but disappointment and abandonment. Yi Ying instantly felt as if she had fallen into an icy lake. Her entire body trembled even more violently. "Dad, Yiqian has someone backing her up. She's not an ordinary student." When she stood up, even our instructor said that her military posture was good. During today's target practice, she didn't prepare anything. She just stood there and fired. The political commissar said that she would shoot perfectly, so she really shot perfectly. Chapter 702. Yi Zhifan didn't think that his daughter would have the guts to jump at him when the car had already started. Her fearlessness was just like him. He thought that she might have guessed what he wanted to do. She was so scared that her face was pale, but she could still speak clearly and choose the key points. "I was wrong, Dad, I was wrong. I shouldn't have disobeyed you. I shouldn't have targeted Yi Qian. I shouldn't have let myself be defeated to the point of no return. Dad, I was wrong, I was really wrong." Yi Ying was really afraid that she would be abandoned because she knew that her father was a man of his words. He was also a man with ambition to climb up the ladder, especially when he knew that there was someone behind the scenes who was secretly supporting him. She thought about the jade pendant on her chest. It was enough to change her identity. Yi Ying was afraid because she was afraid that Yi Zhifan would return the jade pendant to Yi Qian. After she was abandoned, it would instead help Yi Qian. Yi Ying was clearly afraid, but her mind was clear. She only knew that even if she had to be beaten up tonight, it would be worth it. It was said that daughters were their parents' intimate little cotton-padded jackets. These words were indeed true, because Yi Ying had guessed Yi Zhifan's thoughts in the car. He had indeed thought that if this jade pendant could really help him advance further in his career, he wouldn't mind returning it. This thought only flashed through his mind before it disappeared. How could he return the jade pendant to Yi Qian? The relationship between uncle and nephew was like that of an enemy. If Yi Qian took the jade pendant, the sparrow would turn into a phoenix. The first unlucky one would be him. The most important thing was that the person behind the jade pendant was able to help him rise from an unknown village chief to an official with real power in the city in just a few years. How could he not know about Yi Qian's existence and his family's attitude towards Yi Qian? He hid the fact that he didn't return the jade pendant to Yi Qian. Not only did he not blame him, he even continued to secretly help him climb up the ladder. Until now, he still didn't understand what the person behind the jade pendant was thinking. But one thing was for sure, the person behind the jade pendant did not care who the real owner of the jade pendant was. Even if he never gave the jade pendant to Yi Qian, nothing would happen. Yi Jifan looked at his daughter, who was afraid, but still had some courage. With a cold face, he pushed open the car door. After getting out of the car, he didn't say a word. He just raised his hand and waved. But the sound of such a slap in the middle of the night was so loud that the driver, Xiao Wang, who had already walked far away, subconsciously turned back to take a look. Then he moved further away, afraid that he would provoke Director Yi, who was said to be running for the position of deputy mayor. This slap was extraordinarily ruthless. It directly caused Yi Ying to fall to the ground. Her palms scraped against the ground, causing streaks of blood to appear on her palms. Both of her hands were burning with pain. Yi Ying, whose right cheek was visibly red and swollen, did not cry. Instead, she secretly let out a long sigh of relief. She bit her lower lip and stood up with her legs trembling under the cold gaze of two people. I've told you more than once that Yi Qian shouldn't do anything now. You have to endure it. But you, not only can you not endure it, you even personally pushed her to become the person that everyone in class admires. She left school for a year and came back just like that. She could easily get into the provincial first high school and skip a grade to become a second-year high school student. I've repeatedly told you not to have any direct conflict with Yi Qian. Even if you want to make a move, it's best to use someone else's hand. But you're actually stupid enough to make yourself the public enemy of the entire class. Even the military has opinions about you. Ying, you disappoint me. Chapter 703. She was his daughter after all. It was impossible for him to just leave her be. He wanted her to learn her lesson and not do anything stupid again. Yi Ying, who was relieved, did not dare to say that her face hurt so much that she almost fainted. She stood there with her head lowered, not daring to make a fuss. She could only nod in acceptance. Sun Dongqing, who was about to open the door with her keys, heard the noise. Her expression changed, and she ran over with her body full of fat. The Yi family now lived in a small 6-story high-rise, and it was on the first floor with a small courtyard in the front and back. Sun Dongqing, who rushed out of the courtyard, saw a bright red palm print on her baby daughter's face, and it was swollen up. You bastard! Instead of looking for the things that hurt our daughter, you came to hit her. I'll fight you. I'll fight you. Yi Ying was the apple of her eye. She couldn't afford to let anything happen to her. Now, how could she let it go? Like a shrew, she rushed over to fight Yi Jifan. Yi Ying, if you disappoint me again, I won't do anything even if Yi Qian forces you to drop out of school, let alone transfer schools. Remember what you said just now. If you want me to clean up your mess again, go back to Shuka village with your mother. Don't come out and embarrass me again. Yi Jifan did not even look at his wife who rushed out. He opened the car door and sat down. He hit the steering wheel and used the horn to remind the driver to come back. Where are you going? Where do you think you're going after hitting our daughter like this? Get out of the car, get out of the car. Sun Dongqing pulled at the handle. When she could not open the door, she slammed the door and yelled. She did not notice that her husband did not even look at her. Yi Ying, who was standing at the side, saw everything clearly. Wang Dandan's words flashed through her mind. She suddenly felt her heart sink. Ever since she went to school in the province, her father, who was like a mountain in her heart, rarely stayed at home even when he came to the provincial capital. He was either busy with dinner parties or had no time for meetings. Sun Dongqing, however, did not care. She cursed angrily for a while before turning to help Yi Ying up. Your father is now putting on airs at home. What happened just now? I just took out the key to open the door and you were hit. Mom, does Dad contact you often? Yi Ying was a precocious girl. After she sensed that something was wrong, she asked in a deep voice, "Why do I feel that something is wrong with Dad?" Sun Dongqing, who had bent down to take out the slippers, said disapprovingly, "Children shouldn't interfere in adult matters. Your father and I are just like that. Come, change your shoes. Tell me what happened to you in the army. Your father's expression doesn't seem right." Ying did not want to talk about this matter again. Whenever she thought of Yi Qian's high and mighty appearance, her heart would ache. "I made a mistake. Dad will transfer me to second high the day after tomorrow. Yi Qian is in the limelight at school now. I don't want to compare myself to her. Transferring schools is good for me." If she did not transfer schools, she would not have the face to go back to class. The students of Year 2 Class 1 did not know that Ying had left the army. The girls knew that Ying did not return to the dormitory before they turned off the lights. Thinking of what she did during target practice, everyone pretended not to know. To them, Ying was an awkward existence. They did not know how to face her in the future. Chapter 704. They climbed into their beds and turned off the lights. After a while, they started snoring softly. After a tiring day, almost all of them fell asleep as soon as they hit their beds. Yi Qian did not sleep. She closed her eyes and the corners of her mouth were slightly raised, revealing a faint but extremely joyful smile. She had to admit that Captain Xia's love letter was indeed moving. His sentence, "Facing the endless yellow sand, I think even flying past the place where you stopped would be a kind of happiness," made her heart palpitate. This sentence had a deep meaning, and she could not help but think of the training in the desert last year. She thought of the time when she was with the yellow sand and there were fighter jets flying low overhead. Even flying past the place where you stopped. Could it be that one of the fighter jets she saw that night was piloted by Captain Xia? Xia Jinyuan, who could even pilot a fighter jet, actually took a fancy to an inexperienced, high school student like her? Thinking about it, it seemed a little ridiculous. However, his expression and the love letter he wrote to her were sincere and did not seem to be fake. Yi Qian, who had been reborn, did not even need familial affection, let alone love. Now that Major Xia had stirred up trouble, it really messed up a pool of spring water. As she thought about it, she tossed and turned in bed a few times. She did not even know when she fell asleep. She tossed and turned several times but did not sleep. On the other side, Xia Jinyuan sat in Regiment Commander Guo's office and expressed his opinion with a cold expression. The defense needs to be strengthened. If the outer defense is too weak, it will also have a big impact. There are a total of 73 sensors. It looks like an inescapable net, but in fact, it will not work on the dense shrubs. It would be best to replace the old sensors with infrared sensors. Regimental Commander Guo's face was extremely dark. After the probes were installed in the woods, none of the elite soldiers in the regiment could pass through. Later on, when an elite troop of Guangnan military region came over, none of them could walk out either. However, he was still complacent about it. In the end, reality had given him a big slap in the face. A student, a major, had gone into the forest as he wished. The student had only been discovered on the 54th probe. As for the major in front of him, if he had not intentionally revealed himself, no one would have discovered him. It was hard for Regiment Commander Guo's face to not be dark with such a result. How could it be safe? He had already figured it out on the first day. If it wasn't for the military training review tomorrow, Regiment Commander Guo would have made things difficult tonight. Yi Qian, one of the initiators, slept soundly. When he opened his eyes, it was 5 in the morning. His biological clock was still as punctual as ever, and he was not affected by the love letters and confessions at all. After the morning training, it was time for the big inspection. This time, for the first time, 16 high school and provincial first high school lined up in a square formation. The military bugles were loud and clear, and the military uniforms were on their bodies as they drew the curtain to the national anthem. The flag guards were made up of 3 people. Yi Qian was the flag bearer, the one on his left and right was Yang Heng, and the other was the representative of number 16 middle school, a tall and thin senior high school student. The 3 of them had never trained before. They had only gone through a few rounds during the morning training. Under Yi Qian's lead, The three of them passed after 5 rounds. Yi Qian, who was standing at the front of the square formation, immediately saw Xia Jinyuan, who was standing on the inspection platform. He was wearing casual clothes and a military cap, and he had the most elegant temperament. She only raised her gaze slightly, but he seemed to sense it and looked over. The flag guard in the middle is the high school student who went abroad with the leader last time. Look, doesn't he have the aura of a soldier? Xia Jinyuan locked his gaze on Yi Qian and said softly to Commander-in-Chief Xia, "Isn't he pretty good?" Chapter 705. There were a total of 3 flag bearers, and they were all standing at the front. Commander-in-Chief Xia didn't even need to look for them to spot them. Hearing this, he glanced at the girl standing in the middle. She was exceptionally petite, and because of Xia Jinyuan's words, he couldn't help but look at her for a while. Then he nodded and praised her. "She looks like a good girl. She's really rare to be praised by a leader." It might sound like a few words of praise, but those who were familiar with Commander-in-Chief Xia knew that if someone could receive a faint praise from him, it meant that that person was truly talented. Yi Qian stood between 2 boys who were both over 178 meters tall. Although she looked much shorter than the boys, the difference was her aura. She stood in the middle with her head held high and her chest puffed out. She carried a flagpole that was many times taller than herself, and her aura was so strong that it made people ignore the issue of her height. They only felt that this girl's aura was so strong that it suppressed the 2 boys beside her. When the leader on the stage was speaking, the students below the stage would more or less make some small movements. However, Yi Qian didn't. She stood as straight as a pencil, with her feet at attention. Her feet were as straight as the shaft of a gun. Her chin was slightly raised, and she had the reserved and majestic aura of a soldier. Her gaze was firm and cold, and her aura was unique among the several students. Even without Xia Jinyuan's reminder, Commander-in-Chief Xia would have noticed her. She's more than rare. She was groomed by a first-grade sergeant major and a world-class sniper. I've seen her 4-year training plan, and it was completely based on the training plan of the Special Forces in America's Triangle State. Don't you think such a girl is the only one in the army? In the environment where Little Fox lived, he could temporarily be her secret boyfriend among the people she knew. However, when it came to him, especially in front of his father, Xia Jinyuan didn't want to engage in a secret relationship. Besides, he had to let Commander-in-Chief Xia know in advance so that some people wouldn't want to introduce him to a so-called noble girl. How could he not understand his own son, Commander-in-Chief Xia? It was the first time that Commander-in-Chief Xia heard him introduce a girl like this, so he couldn't help but take a few more glances at him. His sharp gaze swept over him, and he said calmly, "A first-class sergeant major, a world-class sniper. It's the first time I've heard of 2 important technical backbones in the military training a high school student. They're not active soldiers. They're all seniors who have retired many years ago. Don't misunderstand that they're using power for personal gain." The Major General of the Army is well aware of what happened to Yi Qian. The leader even specifically instructed us to nurture him well and not let him lose his talent. Other people might be afraid of Commander-in-Chief Xia's sharp gaze, but as his son, Xia Jinyuan, was not afraid. He continued to be indifferent with a slight smile on his lips. "I think it's quite rare to meet a girl like her. Since I've met her, I should take some action." The bomb was thrown so suddenly that Commander-in-Chief Xia was caught off guard. As the only highest-ranking general in the army, Commander-in-Chief Xia's expression only changed in an instant. Other than Xia Jinyuan, who noticed some clues, no one else noticed Commander-in-Chief Xia's gaffe for less than half a second. If he didn't hear wrongly, his son, who cherished himself so much that even his mother couldn't interfere in his private affairs, was telling him that he wanted to take action against a high school student? What action? Military action. Chapter 706. It's definitely not a military operation. What kind of military operation is this for a high school student? This kid. Commander-in-Chief Xia felt like he had returned to 10 years ago. The kid who was so naughty that even the security guards didn't want to work for him was back. Without batting an eyelid, he took another look at the girl who was carrying the red flag and began to walk past the reviewing platform. Her walk was indeed imposing, especially when she waved the red flag and pointed it at the enemy. Her action was as sharp as a sword. If it weren't for the reminder, he wouldn't have thought that she was a student, but a real soldier. If you want to take action, you have to see if the other party is willing. Although he was surprised, Commander-in-Chief Xia didn't show it at all when he spoke. He said calmly, "This kind of girl is rare. She's also mature and doesn't take the wrong path." There was applause. It was Yi Qian's walk. The school leaders on the inspection platform felt proud and took the lead to clap. Xia Jinyuan didn't answer first. Instead, he clapped and said to his Commander-in-Chief Xia, "Clap, Dad. Everyone is clapping. You're the only one standing there without saying anything. How rude. Look, she's walking so well. The boys on the left and right are just background characters. Not bad, she's strong enough." Not only did he clap, but he also kept talking, as if he was afraid that others didn't know how well the girl walked. Commander-in-Chief Xia wanted to slap him on the back of his head. When the flag bearers walked past, it was the start of the parade. Sophomore Class 1 was the first parade. After Yi Qian handed the red flag to the instructor, he trotted back to his class. Following Instructor Huang's command, the entire Sophomore Class 1 began to be inspected by the leaders on the stage. "Dad, I'll arrange a daughter-in-law for you in advance. It's her. I won't change it." Under the orderly and imposing command of 1, 2, 3, Xia Jinyuan threw bombs at Commander-in-Chief Xia one after another. He didn't even consider whether his Commander-in-Chief Xia could accept it. "I think that good things should be done early. If we're a step late, we'll lose everything. Didn't you always say that we should take action when it's time? I feel that it's time for me to make a move. Being indecisive and hesitant will only result in missing out on a good match. To tell you the truth, I've already taken a liking to this girl when she was still in junior high school. After a few years of careful consideration, I finally decided to carry out this decision and pursue her to be your daughter-in-law." Hearing this, Commander-in-Chief Xia's hand went to the right side of her waist. He had taken a liking to her when she was still a junior high school student? This was his son, right? When he heard this, he was filled with anger and wanted to shoot him dead. Xia Jinyuan pretended not to see his father's face, which was as black as the bottom of a pot. He smiled and said, "Don't take out your gun yet. If you really shoot me, not only will you lose a good son, you will also lose a good daughter-in-law. Compared to your taste, my taste is definitely several times better. If I decide on a daughter-in-law in advance, you won't have to worry all day long about whether I'll mess around in the army and whether I won't be able to find a wife in my 40s. I'll give you a reassuring pill in advance. Just based on my filial piety, you'll be secretly happy." Secretly happy? He wanted to use a leather target to get her. This rascal, I thought he finally got on the right track after changing out of his previous rascal skin. Who knew that he would turn around and kidnap an underage girl to date? Chapter 707. Below the stage, when Instructor Huang shouted, "Salute!" the students of Grade 2 Class 1 raised their hands and saluted. Everyone on the stage, including Commander-in-Chief Xia, had to return the salute to the students who saluted them. Yi Qian was in the row closest to the stage. When he raised his hand and saluted, his gaze landed on the stage. First, he saw the faces of the leaders he did not recognize, then he saw Xia Jinyuan, who was wearing a large-brimmed hat and looked as handsome as a celestial being on the moon. Furthermore, he saw the slight smile in Xia Jinyuan's eyes. When he looked over, Xia Jinyuan's gaze reminded him to look to his right. Yi Jian's soul almost flew out of her body when she saw the shiny golden epaulets. His military might was stronger and more dignified than anyone else's. Commander-in-Chief Xia was looking at her with bright eyes at this moment. Yi Qian, whose heart was beating wildly, tried his best to adjust his breathing so that he looked natural. His footsteps were not messy at all. He maintained his composure and calmly walked past the stage. Commander-in-Chief Xia was not far away. He was only 3 meters away, so he naturally saw the subtle changes on Yi Qian's face. Even though Yi Qian had lived 2 lives, Yiqian was still older than him and had more experience than him. After Yiqian walked past him, he said to his son calmly, "She seems to know me." "I think so. Didn't we come back with our leader 2 nights ago? I left her my home phone number. When she called, I was taking a shower. You happened to pick it up. She was so scared that she didn't dare to call home after that." Xia Jinyuan put down his arms. The smile on his face was even brighter than the cloudless sky. "Don't misunderstand. She knows who you are, but it doesn't mean that she likes your status. Also, I forgot to tell you that I've decided on a wife. The point is, the wife I've decided on hasn't agreed to be my wife yet. I still have to pursue her. As for whether I can do so, Dad, it's still unknown." Thus, Commander-in-Chief Xia had the urge to pull out his gun again. Did that mean everything he said before was nonsense? He even said something about taking action. What kind of action is this? The other party didn't even agree. It was his son's one-sided love. A guy who can't even get a wife still has the cheek to say that his taste is better than his father's? Even if my taste was bad back then, at least I left a good seed. However, he was relieved. He really thought that he was dating an underage girl. It was all empty talk. The girl didn't like him at all. Not bad. The girl's self-control is worthy of praise. Commander-in-Chief Xia was not the kind of person who would let his son marry a daughter-in-law based on whether he liked her or her family background. His son was the one who married his daughter-in-law. Why would he like her? As for the family background, the Xia family would not let a woman support the family. It was a man's duty to build his career. Why would he need to rely on his wife? Commander-in-Chief Xia was relieved to know that everything was still in progress and that it was an operation with unknown results. A smile appeared on his darkened face. "As long as the girl doesn't like you, I'm relieved. This girl's self-control is good. The leader has never misjudged anyone. This girl is really good. I don't care what you want to do, but first, I have to make one thing clear. If you dare to let me hear anything about seducing a girl in the army, prepare to eat a bullet." Chapter 708. From this, it could be seen that Commander-in-Chief Xia did not object to his son having a relationship with a high school student. Why should he object? The young lady did not even fancy him. As long as the young lady did not agree, then it would be his son's fault. However, he still had to confirm it. Although he did not need a daughter-in-law with a good family background, he had to ensure that the daughter-in-law who could marry into the family Xia had to have a good character. "Don't bring her to me yet. I don't want to know about your current situation. She is still a high school student, and you are at least 6 years older than her. If you really like her, at least don't disturb her for now." Xia Jinyuan did not intend to bring Yiqian to his house right now. Today, he only wanted to let Commander-in-Chief Xia know that he had found someone he liked. He also wanted to let him know that he would pay more attention to Yiqian in the military in the future. He wanted to know in advance so that when they met in the future, he would not be so clueless and cold to his little fox. Since he had chosen Little Fox as a man, the first thing he had to do was to protect his woman and not let her suffer any grievances in his family. With Little Fox's character, when she entered the military in the future, Commander-in-Chief Xia would be amazed and admire her. When that time came, bringing Little Fox into the family Xia would be much smoother. The relationship between the two had not even started yet, but Xia Jinyuan had already paved the way for Yiqian. "Don't worry, I don't want to bring her home right now. Also, our relationship will definitely not cross the line during her high school years. At the very least, it will have to wait until she enters university. Today, I wanted to let you know that I have my eyes on a good girl, and I will work hard to make her your daughter-in-law. Now that you know about her, you can check on her more in the future. Understand her better and you will know why I have my eyes on her. She is an orphan, and her mother was a martyr. I don't want her to live a careful life at home when I bring her home in the future." Xia Jinyuan had always been a man of his own ideas. He made it clear that he would definitely protect the woman he liked and would not let her suffer in his home. This was because he knew about Yiqian's past. He knew what kind of life she had lived in Yijifan's home. So, he only wanted to give her family warmth in the future. "You can make your own decisions. I won't interfere. But I'll say this first. If anything happens to any of you, I won't intervene. Don't come begging me for help. Commander-in-Chief Xia could tell how firm his son's attitude was. It was to the point that he would not marry anyone else. No matter what kind of attitude she had, if the little girl made any noise while she was studying, even if it was a big noise, he would not care about it. Commander-in-Chief Xia, the flag-bearer just now, is the most outstanding female student of this year. Regiment Commander Gua, who was standing to the right of Commander-in-Chief Xia, tilted his head slightly and said in a low voice, "The day before yesterday, she stood in a military stance and stunned the veterans in my regiment. Yesterday afternoon, during target practice, she stood 200 meters away and shot a perfect shot with a gun. We really need to pay more attention to such a girl in our army." A girl who could catch the eye of a leader and accompany him to Pakistan for a secret investigation must have some ability. However, for a high school student to be able to shoot a perfect shot, it really required some real ability. Commander-in-Chief Xia, who had a slight smile on his face, nodded and said, "Heroes come from young. It's really not bad. Just now, I saw her walk with a military stance and salute." Chapter 709. Regiment Commander Gua had not seen Yi Qian's performance over the past 2 days, but the political commissar standing beside him had been talking about Yi Qian ever since he showed up. In addition, Regiment Commander Lu from the neighboring regiment was also very proud yesterday, so he specially asked which girl was Yi Qian today. After seeing her, he paid attention to her the entire time. He had to admit that the neighboring regiment was amazing. He had no idea how they found such a young girl, let alone how they trained her. It was not possible to train her in the army. After all, the army was a restricted military area, and students could not enter and leave as they pleased. So how did they train her? How did they train a student into a qualified soldier without violating the army's rules? After all, she was not his soldier. Regiment Commander Guo was more concerned about how the neighboring regiment trained her, not how good the person they trained was. After hearing Commander-in-Chief Xia's praise, Regiment Commander Guo quickly pulled his political commissar over and asked him to talk to Commander-in-Chief Xia about Yi Qian. During the field training, she could eat raw snake meat with the veterans. The platoon leader accompanying her said that she looked like a veteran. The other students were out of breath from the 20-kilometer field training, but she was completely fine. She could fight for first place in everything. As a soldier, one had to have the awareness to fight for first place in everything. If you became first place, you would be a role model for your comrades. It would drive the enthusiasm of the entire team and make the higher-ups feel reassured. The political commissar did not hesitate to praise Yi Qian. When Xia Jinyuan heard it, the corners of his mouth curled up and he could not suppress it for a long time. He could still smile. At this moment, Yi Qian's back was still drenched in cold sweat. All the nerves in her body were tense. Commander-in-Chief Xia was in the army, and she had even promised to consider Xia Jinyuan as her boyfriend last night. How open-minded must she be to consider him? Did water get into her brain last night to agree? If Commander-in-Chief Xia knew that she had an ambiguous relationship with his son, he would only need to say a word and all her efforts would be for naught. She wasn't afraid of Yi Jifan, nor was she afraid of the people behind Yi Jifan. However, it was impossible for her to not be afraid of the highest-ranking general of the 3 armies. After living 2 lives, she was just a nobody in front of him. Even if he had lived 2 lives, he would still be in awe of such a great figure. Most importantly, she was now involved with his son. If it weren't for this, she wouldn't be afraid no matter how powerful he was. Because she was the Yi Qian who didn't need to rely on anyone, didn't need any connections, and relied on her own efforts to move forward. It was because of Xia Jinyuan's existence that he felt a little guilty. She felt that, if Commander-in-Chief Xia were to find out about this one day, he would definitely pull out a gun and give her a quick death. Yi Qian suddenly felt a headache coming on. Right now, she just hoped that Xia Jinyuan wouldn't tell Commander-in-Chief Xia about her relationship with him. Even if he did, it wouldn't be now. Yi Qian wasn't even 18 years old yet and was still a high school student. If she were to date an active soldier, she would be ruining Xia Jinyuan's future. As parents, the last thing they wanted to see was someone ruining their children's future. Even the impartial commander-in-chief Xia was the same. Thinking about this, Yi Qian felt that Xia Jinyuan probably wouldn't tell commander-in-chief Xia. After all, which man didn't want to make a name for themselves? Who would want their future to be ruined by a woman? Chapter 710. Especially an outstanding man like Xia Jinyuan. At first glance, one could tell that he was a man who was unwilling to fail. Wearing a military uniform, he stood in the middle of a group of leaders. His bearing and aura were top-notch. He was born different from them, so how could he let Commander-in-Chief Xia worry about him? Thinking of this, Yi Qian finally stopped breaking out in a cold sweat. She still had to strengthen her psychological endurance. Commander-in-Chief Xia had only shown his face, and she was already feeling so guilty. She suddenly recalled the phone call she had made that night. It was Commander-in-Chief Xia who had answered the phone personally. In the end, because she was frightened, she said, "Sorry, I dialed the wrong number." Then she hurriedly hung up. Yi Qian wailed in her heart. She raised her hand and hit herself on the head. Yi Qian, water must have entered your brain. You accepted Xia Jinyuan's love letter and even agreed to be his boyfriend. Water must have entered your brain. Water must have entered your brain. As she hammered her head, she wailed in pain. Now that the other classes were following Fang Jing, Yi Qian and the others stood at the back. No one would notice if they did anything. Instructor Huang, who was standing beside her, saw it. His feet were spread out and his hands were behind his back. His brain did not move, and even his facial muscles did not move. He whispered to Yi Qian, "You look a little uncomfortable." She was indeed uncomfortable. It wasn't her body that was uncomfortable, but her heart was feeling extremely awkward and uncomfortable. "No, I was just thinking about something that was a little difficult." After sighing softly in her heart, Yi Qian restrained the expression on her face, cleared her throat, and whispered, "It's fine. It's fine now." Xia Jinyuan could not have been so hot-headed as to tell Commander-in-Chief Xia about their relationship. With his shrewdness, it was impossible for him to make a bad move. There would be plenty of time in the future. Who knew if they could be together in the future? In his mind, Yi Qian felt as though he was washing sand from the ocean. He washed away the bad things and left behind a reason to feel at ease. Then he felt at ease. As an instructor, he had no right to interfere with a student's own affairs. Hearing this, Instructor Huang's voice tightened as he reminded, "Don't let personal matters affect the review. If there's anything that can't be solved, you can think of a solution after the dismissal. It's a big review now, and all the leaders are watching. Especially since you're the role model and flag bearer of the military training, there are many people paying attention to you. Don't let yourself be a burden." The performance of each battle array had already begun. Yi Jian answered in a low voice, "Yes, sir." She calmed herself down and stopped thinking about Xia Jinyuan. Now, she could only trust that this dangerous man would not report his personal matters to Commander-in-Chief Xia. Instructor Huang glanced at the girl beside him from the corner of his eye. Seeing that she had regained her composure, he couldn't help but smile. The political commissar was right that he was able to teach such an outstanding student before he retired from the military. It really did add a touch of color to his military career. The entire military training review was divided into performance, military boxing, swordsmanship, stick fighting, and tactical performance. Because it was the first time the Southern Province implemented military training for students, all aspects were extremely strict. The duration was only 7 days, but there were many subjects to learn. Not all students participated in the performance of each subject. Due to time constraints, each subject's performance was assigned to each class. Chapter 711. Military boxing was performed by Grade 2 Class 1 to Grade 2 Class 3. At the front of the group was Yi Qian and Instructor Huang, while the instructor of Class 2 and the instructor of Class 3 were sparring. A total of 3 groups stood at the front. One was the student representative of the class, and the other was the instructor. This was the only pairing between the two schools. When they went on stage, they attracted everyone's attention, and most of them were focused on Yi Qian. The leaders on the reviewing platform were surprised by this arrangement. How could they let a student spar with their own instructor? Commander-in-Chief Xia's eyes locked onto the girl who made his son jump on without hesitation. Sparring with an instructor. She was indeed brave. Military boxing was a boxing technique that consisted of punching, kicking, throwing, grabbing knives, and grabbing guns. The moves were of moderate length, and the movements were refined and skillful. When it was put in military training for students, the rhythm was clear and easy to learn and understand. It could be used as a single or group performance. Even if it was just a flowery stance, as long as the students shouted loudly, it could be used to create a radical atmosphere. Following the command, the military boxing performance of the third and third classes began. The school leaders on the reviewing platform saw the students fighting with the instructors, especially when they saw that the instructors used all their strength in their punches. They could not help but worry. Principal Chow, is this appropriate? There won't be any problems, right? Asked the principal of number 16 high school. One of the two schools was ranked at the top, and the other was ranked at the bottom. First of all, there was no competition between the students, so the two schools had a good relationship. The principal of number 16 high school asked this because he was worried. If there was a problem during the military training, and it happened during the review, it would be difficult to explain to the Education Bureau. Principal Chow, who had confidence in Yiqian, smiled. It's okay, there won't be any problems. I'd be worried if other people came up, but I'm not worried about this girl. She's not a stubborn person. If she can stand up, there won't be any problems. Look at her. She doesn't look like a student standing next to the instructor. Don't worry, I'm not worried. What do you have to worry about? Principal Chow naturally knew that Yi Qian was back from military training, so he wasn't surprised to see her standing next to the instructor. This child had given him countless surprises since their first meeting. There were a total of 3 sets of military boxing. The military boxing that students learned during military training was mainly composed of combat skills and basic movements. It was the first set of military boxing with a certain training value and self-defense function. The first set of military boxing that all the students practiced had been modified to a certain extent. The difficulty had been reduced by a lot. Yi Qian swept his right leg over. Everyone present saw Instructor Huang quickly move to the side and clamp down on Yi Qian's right knee with both hands. The school leaders on the reviewing platform held their breaths, while the observing students gasped. They all thought that Yi Qian would definitely be thrown to the ground by the instructor this time. This is too dangerous. Seeing this, the teachers in the school felt that this arrangement was inappropriate. Before they could catch their breath, they saw Yi Qian kick the instructor's half-bent thigh with his left leg. His whole body was lifted into the air, and he kicked the instructor's shoulder with his left leg. Yi Qian was naturally familiar with military boxing. When he fought with Instructor Huang, it wasn't just a simple stance like the other students. It was a real fight. After Yi Qian landed on the ground, there was applause from the reviewing platform. Chapter 712. In fact, there was a drill for this kind of sparring. Since the instructors had a tacit understanding with each other, they could complete the sparring in one go. However, Yi Qian was a student. To be able to complete the sparring as well as the instructors was already quite impressive for a student. No one applauded because they were not allowed to do so. The students of Class 3 and Class 3 started to go, ha, ha, ha. The anti-chemical regimen officer in charge of explaining also began to explain passionately and in high spirits. In the army, military boxing training is often carried out. It is of great significance to cultivate the tenacity, courage, and tenacity of the soldiers. The same goes for the students. In future wars, we will face extremely vicious enemies, not lambs that will be killed without a fight. In carrying out special missions such as reconnaissance, anti-infiltration, sentry, camouflage, and other special operations, as well as acts of bravery to protect the legitimate interests of the people from being violated, we often have to fight the enemy barehanded. The military boxing training of Class 1 of Grade 2 has only been going on for a few days, but we believe that when they step into society in the future, They will remember what they have learned today and become brave warriors who dare to fight against evil forces. Commander-in-Chief Xia had been in the army for half of his life. He could tell at a glance who was the real deal and who was the real deal. When he saw the girl grab the instructor and throw him over her shoulder, he clapped his hands when he saw that. "Dad, I didn't disappoint you by choosing a daughter-in-law, did I?" Xia Jinyuan saw this and a smile appeared in his deep eyes. He knew that with Little Fox's outstanding performance, his father, who had been in the army for half of his life, would definitely like her. Similarly, his father and his wife, who were not inferior to men, would definitely like her too. After Commander-in-Chief Xia finished clapping his hands, he glanced at his scheming son and said calmly, "I'm applauding for her, not for your taste. The girl is not bad, but I'm afraid that you are the one who has wronged her. She didn't say yes to you just now, which shows that she is a sensible person. She knows that she is not suitable to be in a relationship with you. Major Xia, you better remember this. Don't just leave after provoking her. If you really piss me off, I have a bullet waiting for you." However, Xia Jinyuan laughed disapprovingly. "Dad, I grew up being scared by you. I'm used to being scared by your loud voice. I don't plan to taste your bullets. If one day your grandson wants to be naughty, you can use them to teach him a lesson." How could he let go after provoking him? Once he got his hands on her, he could forget about running away. He was set for life. "You look quite decent in your military uniform now. Why don't I talk to that girl personally later? Tell her everything about your youth. I want to see if such an outstanding girl is still willing to follow you." Commander-in-Chief Xia, who had never had a headache when it came to reporting information about the enemy, touched the hard pistol at his waist with his right hand. Facing his son, he was only worried. When he was young and disobedient, he could beat him up directly. Now that he was a major, it was not easy to beat him up anymore. Xia Jinyuan was not afraid of his father's threats. When he heard his father's words, the corners of his mouth curled up. He said calmly, "I will tell my wife about my past sooner or later, so don't worry about it. I grew up being beaten up anyway. My skin is tough, so I'm not afraid of being beaten up. Dad, I would rather be beaten up now than let my wife run away with someone else. I'm telling the truth. Don't think that I'm joking. I have my eyes on her. No matter who comes, they can't stop me." Chapter 713. Commander-in-Chief Xia's eyelids twitched fiercely when he heard his words. Why did he feel like there was a hidden meaning in his words? Even if God came, he wouldn't be able to stop him. He even said such harsh words. It seemed like he really cared, being interested in a 16 or 17-year-old high school student. She had the urge to beat him up again. After the military boxing of the second and third classes ended, there was another round of applause. Xia Jinyuan, who had a smile on his face, said coldly, "Also, your ex-wife has become someone else's wife. Don't even think about interfering. I didn't bicker with her because of you and the fact that you once gave birth to me. Next time, if I hear even a little bit of news, it's useless for you to call her in advance." Commander-in-Chief Xia's ex-wife was naturally Xia Jinyuan's mother. However, when he was 3 years old, Mrs. Xia suddenly came to her senses and wanted to find her own hope. After the divorce, she left Xia Jinyuan, who was only 3 years old at the time, and went abroad. From then on, Xia Jinyuan became a wild child that no one cared about. At that time, Commander-in-Chief Xia wasn't a commander yet. He was a commander in the faraway Ningxia garrison. When he was promoted and came back, not only did his wife run away, his son was so wild that he almost became a headache for everyone in the military compound. It would be fine if he was bad on the surface, but he was bad in the dark, so no one could find fault with him. Commander-in-Chief Xia learned from this painful experience and refused to let Old Master Xia and Old Madam Xia take care of him. Instead, he took care of him himself, determined to make his son change. As he took care of him, he also understood why such a strict person like Old Master Xia doted on his grandson. At the age of 10, he knew how to command soldiers on the battlefield. As a general, he killed his own soldiers until they were miserable. At the age of 12, he crawled under the chassis of a truck and ran around with a criminal team at the border. After he figured out the smuggling team's route, he slipped into the local garrison and said that he would lead the troops to destroy the enemy. That year, Xia Jinyuan, who was only 12 years old, became famous and made a great contribution. As for him, because he lost his son in the garrison for 24 days, Old Master Xia from the capital came personally with the guards and threatened to get rid of the scourge who lost his family Xia's golden grandson. Xia Jinyuan was often beaten like this. Since he was a child, he had long been immune to words like, "If you don't listen to me, I'll shoot you." Even Commander-in-Chief Xia didn't have the power to punish his son at will now. After hearing this, Commander-in-Chief Xia did not speak for a long time. It was not until the entire military training was about to end that he sighed and said, "Your mother and I owe you, so when you say that you want to find a girlfriend, I have no opinion at all." Decided. May, S. I can't do anything about your mother. She's always been a person who stands by her words. At most, I won't interfere with who you find as your girlfriend. What the hell was this? His son found a high school student as his girlfriend. As a father, not only could he not stop it, he even had to hide it. What kind of father was he? In the final commendation segment, the school and the leaders gave out awards to the outstanding units of internal affairs and hygiene, military training, and the exemplary founder company. As the representative of Grade 2 Class 1, Yi Qian stood on the podium and prayed in his heart, "Please don't let it be Commander-in-Chief Xia. Please don't let it be Commander Xia." Chapter 714. Life was full of misfortunes. Yi Jian, who had been reborn, would face a disaster if she met Xia Jinyuan. Her wish would not come true. The more she was afraid of something, the more likely it would come true. Xia Jinyuan, who had talked to Regiment Commander Gua about the improvements to the infrared surveillance of the Chemical Defense Regiment, naturally asked about the award ceremony. There were arrangements for who would be presenting the award. The leaders of the school had to appear, the leaders of the Chemical Defense Regiment had to appear, and since the highest-ranking leader had come, all the more he had to appear. Then, as a son, he quickly arranged for his father to present the banner to Yi Qian. "Not bad. I see in you the spirit of the current generation of students who are constantly striving for self-improvement and tenacious. I hope that in the future, you will all become pillars of the motherland with both ability and integrity, broad-minded, ambitious, and all-round development in all fields." Commander-in-Chief Xia, who was standing in front of Yi Qian and personally presenting the banner to her, carefully looked at the girl that his son had decided to be his wife. He had to admit that the son had better foresight than the father. Her appearance was top-notch, and the determination between her brows made it even more obvious that she was a hard-working, strong-willed, and indomitable girl. Yi Qian, of course, knew that Commander-in-Chief Xia was looking at her. She held the banner tightly with both hands and tried to control her heartbeat. Faced with the invisible military might of the highest-ranking general of the three armies, she tried her best not to lose her composure. After the instructions, she replied seriously with cold sweat on her back, "I will definitely not disappoint the school. I will uphold the school's motto and become a well-developed student." Hearing this voice, it was indeed the little girl who said that she had called the wrong number 2 days ago. At that time, she probably didn't know whether she had called the wrong number or not. She probably thought that the wrong person answered the phone and said that she had called the wrong number. Commander-in-Chief Xia looked at her a few more times. Although she was young, she was able to keep her composure. When his son was 16 or 17 years old, he was also in high school. He had just passed the age that gave him a headache. Suddenly, his temperament changed. He no longer went to the courtyard or hung around outside. Instead, he studied like a different person. The little girl in front of him had a heroic look, and her eyes were extremely clear. She stood there like a pine tree and proud snow. She was no better than Xia Jinyuan back then. If she really wanted to become her daughter-in-law. But she was indeed too young. If that rascal in the family really wanted to cause trouble, then no one could stop him. It seemed that he had to have a private chat with the little girl. They were going back to school later. He could ask the school to arrange for her to sit in the same car as him and have a chat in the car. After making up his mind, Commander-in-Chief Xia turned around and instructed his bodyguards to make the necessary arrangements. In some ways, the father and son were very similar. For example, when it came to sudden attacks, they were definitely the same. They suddenly decided on a matter and killed the enemy before they could react. When Yi Qian found out that he was going to sit in the same car as Commander-in-Chief Xia, he almost fainted. He originally thought that he could relax after the military training was over, but who knew that there was something even more terrifying waiting for him. Principal Chow, can I refuse? I'm just a student. How can I sit in the same car as a senior officer in the military? Is there a mistake? Is there a mistake? Unwilling to give up, Yi Qian tried to use the excuse of a mistake to avoid sitting in the same car as Commander-in-Chief Xia. Chapter 7:15. To others, it might be an opportunity, but to her, it was like a bolt from the blue. Principal Chow himself was very surprised by this arrangement, but Commander-in-Chief Xia's personal bodyguard had personally delivered the message, so how could there be a mistake? He smiled and said, "It was arranged by the commander, so don't worry. Major Xia will also be in the car with you. You know him, so you don't have to be afraid with him by your side." He paused and said, "You should be able to tell the relationship between Commander-in-Chief Xia and Major Xia, so you don't have to worry. Major Xia will be there to guide you. Whatever the commander asks, you just have to answer. There's no need for any fancy tricks. An honest and sincere answer is the best answer." Yi Qian felt so bitter that she wanted to find an excuse to faint from heatstroke. It was because of Xia Jinyuan that she felt uneasy. The most troublesome thing was that she was suspected of having corrupted Commander-in-Chief Xia's son. Even if she didn't take the initiative, she still felt guilty. Faced with Principal Chow's comforting words, Yi Qian, who couldn't say anything, could only reveal a faint smile. She replied insincerely, "So Major Xia is here. Then I'm relieved." No matter how mature a child was, she was still a child. Principal Chow, who especially favored Yi Qian, looked around and said in a low voice, "This is a good opportunity. Perform well. It will help you when you enter the army. Little girl, your own abilities are very important, but you also need a leader who can guide you." This was to let Yi Qian know the rules of the adult world in advance. Hearing this, Yi Qian raised her eyes, pursed her lips, and said with a faint smile, "I understand. Thank you." This was a kind reminder that only someone who truly cared about her would say. As an elder, he was reminding an ignorant junior to seize the opportunity. It was indeed a very good opportunity, but she preferred to use her own ability to seize the opportunity that truly belonged to her. "Old Shen asked me to take care of you and give you some advice if I can. I'm just a teacher, so I don't know what's going on in the army. Since you're destined to join the army, all I can say is that your chance is here." If it were someone else, Principal Chow would not have said such things. Even if the student was in the same car as Commander-in-Chief Xia, he would only remind them to be careful, be cautious, be polite, use your brain before you speak. The more you say, the more mistakes you make. The less you say, the less mistakes you make, and so on. His instructions to Yi Qian were different. First, he didn't need to worry that Yi Qian wouldn't say anything wrong. Second, he wanted to help this orphan student. Third, he hoped that she would have some achievements in the military. In the future, if she made a contribution and established a career, she would also be someone who walked out of the province's #1 middle school. Yi Qian lowered her head and said softly, "Don't worry, I know what I should do. However, Commander-in-Chief Xia is so busy that he specially came to our school to participate in the military training review. I think he's more concerned about whether the students have any difficulties during the military training. He probably wants to know what a student thinks about the military training through me. If there was an opportunity, she would definitely seize it. However, her intuition told her that with Xia Jinyuan around, this was not an opportunity at all." After she finished speaking, Principal Chow was silent for a long time before sighing. "I'm not as clear as you, a student. From the capital to the southern province, and then to the anti-chemical regiment to participate in the military training review, the commander-in-chief, who is so busy every day, wouldn't be so free. I'm afraid there's something else going on." Chapter 716. What else could he be here for? Suddenly, Principal Chao's heart skipped a beat, and he immediately added, "Then you should just answer whatever the commander asks. Don't be in the limelight and don't express your opinions. Just stay neutral and don't try to stand out." If the commander was really here for something else, then it was not something a student could get involved in. Commander-in-Chief Xia was indeed here for something else, but he really squeezed some time out of his schedule to come to the Chemical Defense Regiment. When the students returned to their classes to say goodbye to their instructors, Commander Guo and the political commissar accompanied him to tour the Chemical Defense Regiment. The Chemical Defense Regiment was a mysterious unit. Their clothes and equipment were professional and high-tech, and their appearances were particularly strange. Wearing the long, elephant-like mask, no one would be able to tell who was standing next to each other. Xia Jinyuan, who came to learn the basic professional training of the Chemical Defense Regiment, put on a gas mask with Commander-in-Chief Xia, put on a special combat uniform, and entered the comprehensive training ground. Here, Xia Jinyuan had to learn emergency protection, poison observation, accurate detection, and report data. Only when he was accurate, fast, and precise could he be considered to have passed the basic professional training. This was the comprehensive training ground behind the shooting range. The machines roared, and the disinfectants accurately aimed the spray gun at the poison spots. The comrades of the shower team were like unsheathed swords, dashing forward and back, accurately finding the poison spots, one by one, and then controlling the poison. This exercise is to deal with a nuclear accident and rescue. The average age of this group of soldiers is between 24 years old. They have mastered solid skills and participated in many missions. Commander Guo proudly introduced his soldiers. They are all excellent poison detectors. They are strong in physical fitness, psychology, and skills. Don't be fooled by their young age. They are all flying tigers. Our regiment strives to make every Chemical Defense Regiment soldier a qualified soldier through a series of trainings such as psychological counseling, simulation training, expansion training, mission preparation, skills competition, mutual cooperation, and so on. Xia Jinyuan listened very carefully. These were the skills he had to learn, and he could not be careless. The equipment on his body was not light either. The anti-poison suit and anti-poison mask were at least 6 degrees hotter than the outside world. A set of protective and anti-poison equipment weighed more than 5 kilograms, and it was airtight. In the hot summer, wearing this set of equipment would make one sweat profusely. As for the anti-chemical soldiers who were training, they were already used to this kind of tough training. It also challenged the endurance of the human body again and again. Steel needed to be tempered. No matter what type of soldier it was, it needed to be tempered layer by layer to become an outstanding soldier. Only by strengthening his military capabilities would he be able to provide himself with an additional layer of protection every time he carried out a high-risk mission. Every tough training was also for the sake of returning safely. Looking at these brave and fearless young figures, Commander-in-Chief Xia only said one sentence: "Come to the army safely and return home safely." Life and death were not determined by the heavens, but by humans. Today's hardships are for the good of the people. No matter where you are, the people of the past and the people of the future will remember that it was your fearless figures that made our country safe. The most adorable people and the most respectable people of the current generation. Who else could it be other than this group of soldiers who were on the verge of death even when they were training? Commander-in-Chief Xia was not like other parents who were reluctant to let their only son suffer hardships, for fear that one day he would receive a document saying that he had sacrificed himself. Chapter 717. After coming out of the comprehensive training ground, Commander-in-Chief Xia said to Xia Jinyuan, "Joining the army was your own choice. Study hard, and when you're done, come back and tell me how outstanding you are. No matter what you do, even if it's chasing a girlfriend, you have to be alive to do it. If you're not alive, then don't waste the good girl's time. Let her cry for you for nothing." When he said this, no one else could hear him. As a father, he was telling his son to give it his all in any training, because it was the only hope that he could come back alive. Don't destroy that hope with your own hands. After participating for 2 hours, Yiqian also waited for 2 hours. The students from the two schools were already sitting on the bus arranged by the school, and the bus rocked all the way back to school. Instructor Huang, who was sitting next to her, sent all the students of grade 2 class 1 onto the bus. He said to Yiqian, "You students cry so easily. We don't know how to comfort you." During the military training, they resented the instructor for being too strict. When the military training ended, they suddenly couldn't bear to leave. Not only did the girls cry, but even the boys' eyes turned red and a few drops of tears fell. The instructors didn't feel anything when they cried during the training, but when they suddenly cried, they didn't know what to do. Yiqian even saw a girl from class 3 suddenly rush up and hug her instructor while crying. At that time, she really saw the instructor's face turn as red as a cooked shrimp. He didn't even know where to put his hands and feet. After this scene, the other instructors immediately took action, afraid that a girl from their class would rush up and hug them too. Although they were all tough during the training, when they took off their military uniforms, they were just a group of young men in their 20s. There was embarrassment and shyness in them. Yiqian, who was walking in the middle of more than 10 instructors, was already laughing. He said to Instructor Huang, "Aren't they a group of cute students? Crying means that they can't bear to leave. Although it's only 7 days of military training, it's an unforgettable experience for us students. At the same time, it will also affect their future choices. The boys in our class really have an agreement. If they don't get into university, they'll join the army." In 1997, there were still very few high school students joining the military. However, ever since the military training in high schools and colleges started, the number of high school and college students joining the military increased. Why did they start military training in schools? One of the goals was to improve the education of the entire military. The instructor of class 3 was still wiping his sweat. Hearing this, he said with lingering fear, "I didn't see that girl cry during the military training. Just now, when she suddenly rushed up, it really scared me. Fortunately, the two boys beside me helped to pull her away. Otherwise, I don't know what to say." This was actually a rather sad question. The young warriors faced a group of students, adding a touch of color to the dull life of the military camp. When this color gradually faded into memories, they were also reluctant to part with the students they had trained. The guy in our class called Zhang Bin is pretty good. He was a sports student and was very good at basketball. I found out that his father was a police officer. He also said that if he didn't get into university, he would sign up for the military. There are a few students in our class who are good at playing the harmonica. Another one plays the piano. He said that he has been playing for 10 years. Now, his major is level 11 or 12. Chapter 7:18. At the mention of their own students, the instructors who went to the cafeteria together had a topic to talk about. The students these days are all very good. How can we compare to them? That night when I was on night patrol, 2 boys were solving a math problem in the toilet. I listened for a long time outside, but I didn't know what they were talking about. There's another student in our class who's really good at English. He even sings English songs. Although we're their instructors, we're not as good as them in this aspect. Every class gave the instructors a deep memory. The students had already left, so they would never know that the instructors, who were called Black King Kong and Black Iron Mask, also had a soft heart under their camouflage uniforms. Unbeknownst to the instructors, they would reminisce about the students that they had taught. There was a slight smile at the corners of their mouths, and their eyes were still bright and sharp. This was a side of them that the students couldn't see. Yiqian, on the other hand, was able to get close to them. She could really get close to their lives, and see the other side of the instructors. She knew that they were also sad about parting. They were all soldiers who were about to retire at the end of the year. When winter came and the first snow fell, it was time for them to take off their uniforms and leave the military camp. At that time, no matter where they went, they would still remember the existence of the students. It was also a good thing to keep the good in their memories and spend the rest of their lives reminiscing about it. They didn't ask Yiqian why she didn't leave. They naturally walked over to her and chatted with her. They were like comrades who had been together for a long time. They were so familiar that they could talk and laugh. The two principals of Provincial No. 1 Middle School and No. 16 Middle School hadn't left yet. They needed to make some final arrangements before they could leave. Yi Qian, who had left with the instructors, was wondering if she should go and see Principal Chao first. Then she saw the guard who had told her that the commander-in-chief wanted to talk to her. When they saw this guard, the instructors realized that Yi Qian, who had been talking and laughing with them all the way, was also leaving the military. A few deep sighs were heard. Instructor Huang gently patted Yi Qian's shoulder. "I'm afraid we won't have a chance to meet again in the future. We'll go to the provincial capital to look for you after the break." Instructors and students were not allowed to communicate privately, but Yi Qian was different. The instructors always felt that this girl was actually a soldier. Yi Qian naturally welcomed them, but he pursed his lips and sighed, "I don't have any holidays until the end of December. I won't be in school from Monday to Thursday after class, and I won't be in school from Friday to Sunday. I'm afraid that you won't be able to find me when you come looking for me. Then we'll talk about it when the time comes. It's actually against the rules for us to look for you in private." Instructor Huang chuckled. Yi Qian's arrangements were even better than theirs. If they had the chance to meet again, after giving a military salute to all the instructors, Yi Qian turned around and looked at the guards beside Commander-in-Chief Xia. Then, his heart began to beat like a drum. Commander-in-Chief Xia, who didn't even have time for lunch, had already seen the girl walking over with his guards. He said to Xia Jinyuan, "I'll be talking to her later. Listen to me from the side and don't interrupt." Since they were all in the car, Xia Jinyuan didn't have to worry about others overhearing. He smiled and said, "Dad, that won't do. I can already see the bad intentions on your face. When it's time to speak, I'll definitely speak. You can't stop me." Chapter 719. Commander-in-Chief Xia looked at his son, who had squeezed into the car and refused to leave. Fortunately, he was able to keep his composure. Otherwise, he would have been angered by his son to the point of vomiting blood and directly ascending to the sky. Now, he could not hit or scold him. He could only lecture and criticize him. Commander-in-Chief Xia's face darkened, and his voice was extremely tense. "If I keep this face, don't you think I'll scare your sweetheart away?" What he meant was, "If you make me angry again, I won't cooperate with you the entire time." Xia Jinyuan laughed even louder. He lazily leaned over from the passenger seat and was not threatened at all. His expression did not change as he said, "I haven't even won her heart yet. Why are you scaring her? Also, this girl is not an ordinary girl. It's okay if she's really scared by you. I'll apologize to her later and make her happy." He was not afraid at all and did not show any emotion. Hearing Commander-in-Chief Xia's words, he felt his heart ache again. "How did I give birth to such a hothead like you? You haven't won her heart yet, and you still have the nerve to talk about her in front of me. You like a high school student. Fine, I won't stop you, but you have to restrain yourself." Xia Jinyuan was born to be his nemesis. He could subdue anyone, but when it came to his son, he had never succeeded. Outsiders said that he, Xia Xinhui, had raised a good son, but in fact, his good son suddenly changed for the better. It was not because he was good at teaching him, but because he suddenly came to his senses and changed for the better overnight. Even now, Commander-in-Chief Xia still remembered the scene at that time. After returning from the military exercise in the Helan Mountains, he fell into a deep sleep on his bed. Suddenly, he felt that someone was standing by his bed, staring straight at him. At that time, his reaction was to directly pull out the NP-20 pistol for self-defense from under his pillow and even pull the safety. He only needed 3 seconds to shoot directly. The gun barrel was pointed directly at his forehead. Even he was so scared that he broke out in cold sweat. However, his son was completely fine. He opened his mouth and said, "Dad, hire a tutor for me. I plan to try to enter the military academy." At that moment, he almost thought that it was the Bodhisattva who had finally enlightened his son, whom everyone secretly thought was a good-for-nothing. He's sensible now. He was so frightened that he dropped the gun in his hand. "There's no point in playing anymore. Hire a few tutors for me. Hire tutors for all the classes." Time is a little tight. It's best if everyone is here tomorrow so that I can study early. He picked up the pistol that had fallen on the floor. At that time, the young master of family Xia, who was 4 months away from turning 14, had grown up overnight and used less than half a year to learn. His learning speed was so fast that it made everyone's jaws drop. Then, at the age of 14, he was selected by his school to participate in the World Olympiad, held in the United Kingdom. This was also why Xia Jinyuan had a meaningful smile on his face when he found out that Yi Qian was going to participate in the World Olympiad. After that, the young master of family Xia sang songs of victory all the way to the military academy as if God had helped him. This became another major news in the courtyard at that time. After so many years, the young master of the Xia family had always been dutiful. He entered the military academy and joined the army. After leaving the army, he was promoted. It was as if the rascal of his youth had never appeared. Even Commander-in-Chief Xia had almost forgotten how foolish his son was back then. Welcome to Legends of Cultivation, audiobooks, where we bring ancient fantasy to life through storytelling. Follow the rise of heroes who defy fate, unlock mystical powers, and battle across celestial realms. Our audiobooks are crafted for fans of Chinese cultivation novels, filled with battles, breakthroughs, and legendary artifacts. Subscribe and be part of an unforgettable journey into the realm of immortality.